I do not have to be in this room right now. Do you know what I am giving up to be in this interview right now? And it's pretty serious. I'm giving up the opportunity to play crappy golf with old men at the country club. Before I speak, breathe. Ask myself one question, is it worth it? I work with the leader, they get feedback. My suggestions become orders. Is there anyone else who can provide this feedback better than me? If the answer is yes, don't do it. Let them do it. Don't pretend to know everything. Suck it up. You have to let it go. Let me think. I left a good job in the city. I was working for the man every night and day. Hello, my name is Marshall Goldsmith. I'm an executive educator, traveled all around the world speaking and teaching, executive coach. I've had the privilege of coaching many of the top leaders from around the world, and finally I'm an author. I've written or edited 55 books, including 4 New York Times bestsellers.
Many leaders look for connecting with people when they interview them. Marshall, how do you square that up with not creating mini-me versions of yourself in the org?
Very important for our leaders, don't hire people who are very similar to you. The reality is, your question is a very good question. We do tend to want to hire people who are like us. Well, the problem is we're replicating ourselves. You need to go out of your way to say, is this person not like me? Is this person complementary? Does this person have skills I don't have? Does this person have a perspective I don't have? And very important to go out of your way not to hire yourself. Let me give you a good test to help you when you do this. Look at the top 5 candidates for a job, rank order them, how much do they remind me of myself? Then, before you make the decision, ask yourself, is my decision being influenced by that ranking? If the answer is yes, you may want to go back and revise your decision.
Marshall, what have you found to be the most crucial metrics when it comes to measuring leadership, and how can leaders improve on it?
I'm not an expert saying this is the most crucial metric. I'm just going to talk about a metric I use, and that is, I work with the leader, they get feedback. They pick the important behaviors they want to improve. They determine they want to be more effective, as judged by whom. They identify their key stakeholders, and then every leader I coach is evaluated on actual improvement, not as judged by themselves, as judged by everyone around them.
Marshall, 3 things you should do whilst giving feedback to CXOs.
One thing to keep in mind when you're giving feedback to people, or even giving suggestions to people, is this. One of the great people I coached is named 𝐷𝐴. He was the CEO of 𝐿axoSmithKline. I asked him, when to learn about leadership as a CEO, he said, I learned a very hard lesson. My suggestions become orders. Now I said, if they're smart, they're orders. If they're stupid, they're orders. If I want them to be orders, they are orders. If I do not want them to be orders, they're orders anyway. My suggestions become orders. For 9 years, I trained the admirals in the United States Navy. What's the first thing I teach the new admirals? You get that star? Your suggestions become orders. Admirals don't make suggestions. When you make a suggestion, what's the response? Aye, aye. That suggestion becomes an order. Now I asked JP, what'd you learn from me when I was your coach that helped you the most? He said, you taught me one lesson, helped me be a better leader and have a happier life. I said, what was it? Before I speak, breathe. Ask myself one question, is it worth it? And he says, half the time, he had the discipline to do this, where he said, am I right? Maybe, is it worth it? No. As a leader, before you give any suggestion, another great learning from my friend 𝐼𝐴 is before I try to coach anyone, give them feedback. Is there anyone else in the company can answer this question better than me? Is there anyone else who can provide this feedback better than me? If the answer is yes, don't do it. Let them do it. Because if you do it, let's say your idea is a stupid idea. They're going to do it anyway. Even worse, they're going to say the CEO told me to tell you this dumb thing.
Marshall, what are important traits to have as a leader to influence others?
What are the keys to effectively influencing other people? I'm going to answer that from 2 perspectives. 1, when you do have the power, and 2, when you don't have the power. Those are 2 different answers. Now, let's go back to Peter Drucker, world's greatest authority on management. He taught me this lesson. I have had to repeat this lesson 1,000 times to people with MBAs from Harvard, who are CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies. They don't get it. This lesson's easy to get up here. We forget it in the real world. Here's the lesson. Point 1, every decision in the world is made by the person who has the power to make the decision. Make peace with that. Not the smartest person, a fair person, a good person, or a logical person. Point 2, we're here on earth to make a positive difference. Not to prove we're smart, not to prove how great we are and how right we are. It's hard. In point number 3, if I need to influence you and you have the power to make the decision, there's one word to describe you. That word is called customer. There's one word to describe me. That word's called salesperson. Customers don't have to buy. Salespeople have to sell. How do you influence people when you don't have authority? You sell. You sell to their needs, not to your needs. You don't try to prove how smart you are. You don't try to prove how right you are. You sell and realize they don't have to buy. Like any good salesperson, you treat them with respect. You sell to their needs, not to your needs. You understand how you're going to make a bigger difference. You sell what you can sell. If you sell it, sell it. If you can change it, change it. If you can't sell it and you can't change it, smile, take a deep breath, and just let it go. Don't waste your life on what you're not going to change. Invest your time on what you are going to change. Now, to influence people when you don't have authority, that's the guide. What about if you are the boss? Let's imagine I'm the manager. Somebody comes to me, I want to try X, they believe Y is a better answer. Now let's say normally I'd be happy if it's close to go with Y. In this case though, it's very important to me. I believe X is right. My instinct is I have to prove the other person's wrong. No, you don't. I'll tell you exactly how to deal with it. You say, you know, Mr. Direct Report, in this case, I want to do X and you want to do Y. Let me make sure I understand. That's good. I made a decision. In this case, we're going to go with X. The other person challenged it. I disagree. I'm not think it's the best idea. I think Y is better. You know what you say? I understand you disagree. You're a very smart person. I respect you. I've listened to you and I made a decision. The person says, I think you're wrong. You know what you say? I might be. And by the way, I want to assure you of one thing. If I'm not wrong this time, I'm going to be wrong sometime. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying you're wrong. Look, none of us have a crystal ball here. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. I am saying I respect you. I've listened to you. In this case, I've made a decision. Here it is. I want you to execute this decision in the best way you possibly can.
What do you think are 2 qualities that are most underrated today when managing millennials?
You know, in managing younger people today, I think very, very important to realize, don't pretend to know everything. Don't pretend to be an expert. Don't pretend to know technology. You probably don't. You want to be a leader who's humble, who's curious, who's listening, who's learning. And the worst thing you can do is try to be what you're not. The problem with these young, smart people is not that they're young, they're also smart. And if you try to fool these people, you're going to look like an idiot. The main thing is also understand that also they don't have blind loyalty anymore. The best young people who are working with you today, they can get another job someplace else and make more money. You got to treat them like volunteers. Why? In essence, they are volunteers. If somebody you're managing is a young person and can leave your company tomorrow and get a better job someplace else, you are managing a volunteer and you have to treat them with respect. If you don't, guess what? They're going to leave.
How can you basically manage compassionately, yet squaring that up with having to sometimes let people go?
One of the great leaders that I work with is named Harry Kramer. Harry was the CEO of Baxter, now he's a professor at Northwestern Kellogg School, Teacher of the Year, a wonderful, wonderful guy. He was challenged with a great question. How do you sleep at night? You've had to fire people, you've had to lay people off, you've had to do tough things. How do you sleep at night? You know what he said? I have no trouble sleeping at night. You just have to ask 2 questions. Did I do what I thought was right, and did I do my best? If the answer is, I did what I thought was right and I did my best, he said, I can sleep at night. Well, that's all anybody can do. You show up, you do what you think is right, you do your best, you make peace. Let me give you a great example of this. The Bhagavad Gita. The whole point of the Gita is that. Sometimes in life you have to make hard decisions. The protagonist had 2 choices, bad and worse. He was talking about, this is terrible, this is bad, this is worse. Well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. What's the message? Suck it up. Suck it up. You got to make a choice here. All right, pick it. You have bad and worse. You pick bad. You do your best. I'm not sugarcoating it. It is terrible. That's all you can do. You make peace and you go home and sleep at night. And one final thing about empathy. Everybody, empathy is good. Empathy is good. Sometimes empathy is good and sometimes empathy is incredibly bad. Let me give an example. I coach 2 great people that are heads of Children's Hospital. And I remember one of them saying that, you know, when I was an intern, I used to go home and cry every night. I finally realized I can't do that and do this job. I've got to let it go. I've got to let it go. Well, if you're head of St. Jude's Children's Hospital, you see children die every day. You can't carry that around. You have to let it go. If you can't let it go, you can't do your job. You can't do your job. I'm gonna give you a funny story about this, empathy. And that's an easy thing to understand, the challenge of someone in a children's hospital. I'm gonna tell you a more amusing story. A hedge fund manager of all things. You think these people are the least empathetic people in the world. A hedge fund manager. I'm listening to 2 hedge fund managers. At the time, this is a long time ago, one of them's worth $1 billion, the other's worth $3 billion. They're both very famous people. The young guy says to the old guy, why don't you have your own fund? The old guy says, I'm not as good. The young guy says, why not? You know, more now than ever. The old guy says, I started caring. The young guy says, what do you mean? He said, when I was young, I didn't care. I made billions of dollars, I lost billions of dollars. I just kept rolling. I was good at it. Obviously, I made more than I lost. When I got older, I started caring. I started thinking, this is somebody's retirement or health care, and I started worrying about it. He said I became a lot more conservative and a lot less effective. That's why I don't invest their money anymore, I only invest my money. I started caring. That's why parents can't operate on their kids. You see, we've been brought up to believe caring is good. You've got a mission in life. And you want to achieve that mission, you got to achieve the mission. And when caring gets in the way of that mission, which it can, at the children's hospital or even at the hedge fund, it's not a good thing. It's doing more harm than good.
If you were in my seat and had the option to interview someone, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Now, what would I like to be if I didn't end up being me? Let me think. I left a good job in the city. I was working for the man every night and day. Would I give up my role as a leading executive coach, a person working with CEOs around the world to be a decadent rock star? Yes. Oh yeah. Unfortunately, I was not given the alternative.
What's the end goal or chase for Marshall Goldsmith that inspires him to still do what he's doing after 4 decades?
Well, 3 things. 1, I have a higher purpose, which I want to help as many people as I can, given the limited time I have left to do it. 2 is I think I'm achieving something. And 3, I like what I do. It's fun. So what do I like about my project? It's fun. I mean, I'm having fun. Now, I don't have to be talking to you right now, by the way. I hope you appreciate this. I do not have to be in this room right now. Do you know what I am giving up to be in this interview right now? And it's pretty serious. I'm giving up the opportunity to play crappy golf with old men at the country club while eating chicken salad sandwiches and discussing gallbladder surgery. So I hope you appreciate the extreme sacrifice I'm making by being here.
Marshall, your Quickfire with 𝐿𝐴𝐵 starts now. What is the one incident that has changed or impacted your life the most?
Oh, the accident was breaking my neck while I was surfing. I never thought I'd be able to walk again. I told myself, if I can never walk, don't complain. Life is good.
What is the most unexpected thing that people experience or encounter with Marshall Goldsmith?
I think people somehow think I'm going to be a little more serious than I am. I just want to have a good time. Life is short. We're going to die anyway here. Let's have some fun.
What do you want to do more of but not get enough of in life?
Very little, very little. I mean, I'm an adult. I have a choice to do whatever I feel like doing. So if I'm not doing what I want to do, I'm an idiot.
A business buzzword you've heard CEOs say that you dislike the most?
I dislike almost all buzzwords. Transformational or, you know, blah, 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 all these silly words people use, right, all the time. Look, I try to help real people change real behavior in the real world. Things like don't scream at each other, listen a little better. That's hard enough. I mean, all of this, you're going to be some new human being after listening to a motivational speech is insane.
Which fictional character is the best leader?
Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz.
One book you always recommend to people on leadership?
One book I always recommend, I don't know if it's about leadership, it's called Old Path, White Clouds. It's by a Buddhist monk called Thich Nhat Hanh.
One thing you wish people knew more about Marshall?
A little interesting fact about me that few people know is I spent a lot of my life when I was young hitchhiking. I hitchhiked 20,000 miles as a young man. For example, 1969, I was gone 3 months hitchhiking all around America. And there's a saying about that. Somebody say, well, what was that like? And the answer is, if you can remember it, you weren't there.
First thing you do in the morning, the last thing you do every day?
It's different every day.
What's that one moment from your life that you'd love to relive again, Marshall?
If I had a chance to live my life over again, what would I do different? And the answer is nothing. I would do nothing different. I'm a fan of sci-fi, science fiction movies. You change the timeline, It can get worse before it gets better. And I started out in this little school with the outhouse. I ended up where I am. Now, what would I change? The answer is absolutely nothing. Now, did I make lots of mistakes? Thousands of mistakes. You get rid of the mistake, you get rid of everything you learn from the mistake.
A cause that you are most passionate about?
A cause I'm passionate about is called Marshall Bot.
You're most grateful in your life for?
I'm most grateful in my life for being happy and breathing.
If you had the power to invent a new holiday, what would we be celebrating?
Happy day.
The soundtrack to your life will be?
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high.
One thing a leader must never do?
Put yourself above the people you lead.
One thing a leader should always do?
Lead by example.
If you had a gigantic billboard out there to millions of young entrepreneurs and leaders, what would that one-line message be?
Go to Marshall Bot. I am so happy to be working here with 𝐿𝐴𝐵, an amazing platform to talk about understanding leadership and facilitating the development of leadership, a process that's going to be used around the world.